So, I think it's time. Welcome to my session. It's about accessibility, especially digital accessibility for editors. Shortly, my name is Wolfram Huber. I have about 20 years experience in the topic accessibility. It was the year 23 when in Austria, the year of people with disability was, and I get involved in this topic. Now I'm from Duloops, some company, and I'm there the head of accessibility. I'm also doing CMS systems, PHP CMS systems, and I'm the founding member and official in the organization Accessible Media. Maybe you have heard about that. Once a year, we organize an event similar to this event, a little bit smaller. And it's called the A-Tag. It's a kind of a community event for accessibility. Then I'm a member of the board and an auditor in the WACA Association. This is the Web Accessibility Certificate Austria. It's a kind of certificate for accessible websites. And at least I'm the trainer in a course from Inside for web accessibility expert. So I'm doing a lot of stuff in this area. So at first, maybe we take a brief look at the underlying guidelines and requirements we're talking about in this, also for the editors, relevant things. We mainly have the WCAG, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, at the current version of 2.1. This is the current version. So if you talk about accessibility, this is the way to start to read these guidelines. The W3C is developing at the moment the WCAG 2.2 and the WCAG 3.0, so the processes are a little bit, they take longer, and it's scheduled to be finalized within 2023. The 2.2 version, but the 3.0 version we don't know at the moment. So there will change a lot in these guidelines. Then another important guideline or criteria are the EN 301549, version 321. These are also criteria to consider when you talk about accessibility. There are some links from the FFG, the Austrian Association. And here are the criteria listed you have to fulfill when you want to be confirmed to accessibility by law. So in Austria, there's the Web Accessibility Law, the Web Zugänglichkeitsgesetz, and these guidelines are mentioned there. These are the underlying guidelines and requirements. And here are some important links. Maybe, I don't know, I think you can have the presentation afterwards. I don't know how it's done here. Back to the main topic. What can editors do for accessibility? So the accessibility process basically has different steps. So at first, of course, you have to go through a conception, and then maybe you have a graphic design for the project. There you have to consider some things for accessibility, mainly the contrasts. You know about that, so the contrast should be high for background and foreground colors, for the font, and so on. Then you have, of course, you have to consider about content management systems who deliver accessible features in the backend. So if you maybe upload an image you have to be sure that the system is able to provide an alternative text for the image, for example, and so on. Then you have front-end templates, of course, so the front-end developers have a huge role in this process, and then you have an evaluation at the end, maybe, so maybe a certificate or something like that. For accessibility, but one role is missing in these steps, and the role is the role of the content editors, and some of the essential functions can only be done by the content editors themselves. So maybe ChatGPT will do this for you someday, but at the moment I think it's not so far. Yeah. So I can give you now a short brief overview about the main important things for content creators, editors. So mainly the wording, the language, the pictures, the structuring, short table, how to implement this, or create it, abbreviations, maybe foreign words, changes in the languages of the website or of the digital product, then how to do links right, and how to implement create multimedia in the right way. I know it's a big plan, and normally this speech is about 3 hours in the workshop, so I will reduce many of the slides to come through in my time. So at first, this point is I will only make a brief overview about the language, because it's a AAA thing. So in the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, we have some levels, level A, AA, and AAA. And in the law, you have to be compliant to AA. So this language part is more or less AAA part, but maybe it's interesting that you know what we're talking about when we're talking about language in the accessibility context. So mainly, we have 2 different language concepts. And then we have the plain language and the easy language. And the difference is that the easy language is really aimed to people with a clear, for a clear target group. For example, for people with learning disabilities. And we have here in Austria, I don't know how it's in Europe, but we have here the A1 and A2 niveau. And the difference to plain language targets a more broader group of people, so the more newspapers maybe, and public websites are writing the texts in plain language. So here's the link about this language niveau A1, A2, B1, B2, and C1 and C2. For the easy language, it's important that you use really short sentences, simple structured, like subject, predicate, and object. The boy plays the ball, for example, really short, clear sentences. Then you have to use illustrations, for example, for each sentence, and so on. So example for a text in easy language. Oh, I think it's this. No, so it's okay, it's gone, sorry. Yeah, and the difference, the plain language, you can have more complex sentences, but always try to make the clear structure of the sentences, keep it short and simple. Is one word, and tabloid media, I don't know if it's the right translation. It's kind of newspapers who have not so high standard. Boulevard media, we say in German. Yeah, they use mainly plain language. So if you know one of the main websites of Austria, it's the ORF. You have here some posts in plain, easy language, so that they care about this a little bit. When we take a look at the WCAG, there you see the points in which the language is mentioned, so they are all AAA. And the most important point is this one, the reading level point. And there's a criteria making the text easier to read, where clear things are on it. So it's like develop a single topic or subtopic by paragraph and so on. So the next part, more important in our context, are the images or non-text content. So ideally, you should think about two things if you use images or non-text content in the digital project or product. So the two things are, what is the function of the image? So like if you can click on the image, if it's linked or if it's opening a light box, and what is the content of the image? These are the two things you have to consider when you're using an image. And ideally, a good image description has equal access to the image information. So maybe you know it, but if you are blind and you're using a screen reader, this image is read out by the screen readers. I can show it to you a little bit later, how it sounds like. And yeah, so, and of course it's also good if you provide a good image description for search engines, for example. So there are many benefits if you do that right. So here are some best practice points for using images. So usually, you know it, I think, it's in the image element defined with the alt attribute, where you provide the description of the image for blind or search engine, for example. Yeah, you have to be brief and to the point. Don't so approximately 150 characters. It's enough for an image description in the alternative text. And try to avoid redundant information. So maybe in the image context of the website, there's the same information in text form, so that you don't have to put all this information again in the image alternative text. Yeah, and one really important thing is that you must provide at least an empty alternative attribute for maybe decorative pictures, which don't have a meaning or it's only for decorative purpose. If you don't do that, then the file name of the image is read out by the screen reader. So at least provide an empty alternative attribute. Yeah, this is the classical way. There's some interesting guides for, best practice guides for making, for example, background images accessible. So you know it all, you have a background image and over the background image there's some text and buttons and so on, and how do you provide now a good alternative information for this background image. And here we have a best practice from a guy, which is a really good way to provide this information. You see it, a little larger. So you have a div, maybe where the background image is located via CSS. And then a good way to do this is that you list here a span element with the role attribute image. So the screen reader, if it comes to this element, thinks, okay, now I found the image. And the screen reader reads out this ARIA label then for this image. So here you can put in this ARIA label attribute the information from the background image. That's a good way to do it. Don't do is this way. So you have a background image with the attribute role image and attribute of the ARIA label. So don't do this, because if you do it this way, it can be that all of the rest of the content which is inside the div is ignored by screen readers. So that's not a good idea to do it this way, because an image doesn't have a rest of the content inside. So the screen reader ignores this contents. So this is for background images. Then there's also there are some guides, but this is also a good guide for alternative text for SVGs. So you can do it classically, of course, with an image element, image tag. So you have to do it like a normal image. But here are some different patterns listed. And here's also listed how screen reader are reading these patterns and so you can, if you have SVGs in your website, what I think it is, at the moment it's very modern to use it, of course. So you can here take a look at these patterns and how the screen readers like voice over on the mobile phones, NVDA, screen reader on Windows, and so on, are reading this information then. Good. That's not so really for the content editors, of course. It's more for the front-end developers, this information, but sometimes it's hand in hand. Yeah. So there's one main exception, I tell you, in the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines for more complex informations, like maybe a kind of a map. So you have here a map with pins on it for some, no more pins on it. No more ADEC in Austria. Okay, so, no, okay, takes a little bit. And if you click on one of them, of course, you zoom in, and then if you click on another one, you see a balloon tooltip where the information of this ADEC is listed. And if some such kind of maps are really hard to implement in an accessible way, but you can do always this one, that to provide an alternative information for this complex element. And this is a main exception in the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. You have it here for level AA conformance. The web page satisfies all the level A and AA success criteria, or a level AA conforming alternate version is provided. And this will be an alternate version, a list of some elements which is only seen in a map, for example. So we have, of course, different other things, not only images, but also some kind of buttons and shop carts and menu items and so on. And also here, it's also more for the front-end developers. You have to provide accessible information for these elements. You can do it different ways. You can do it maybe with an alternative attribute and an image element, but you can also do it via title or ARIA label, screen reader only text, and so on. So this is the image point. The next point is structuring. So mainly here, the most important thing of structuring is that you use the headings in the right way. So you know it all. So here I have a small example of a Drupal website default theme, and you have to try that you use the headings in a right hierarchically correct way. So here we have H1. This is the title, and then I have some subheadlines. This is a heading 2 then, and this is also a heading 2 then. And if I evaluate this page now, I have the web developer toolbar here. And now I say information, view document outline. I see the heading outline. Of course, this one is not interesting for me at the moment because I'm in the backend logged in. Huh? But here, these are the headings for the website, and they're hierarchically correct, ordered. So H1, ideally only use one H1. It's not forbidden to use more H1s, but ideally one H1, and then hierarchically correct subheadings. So this is the main important point for this structuring elements. Of course, the lists and so on are also very important, and quotes and so on, but headings are really important because the screen reader users orientate often via headings in the web page, and so if this is a clear hierarchical structure in the headings, this is a really good thing. So then we have the tables. So yeah, sometimes we see such elements on a website. So people use layout tables for maybe to put the image next to a text. The thing is that this is not forbidden. You can use it. It's not good. It's not best practice, of course, and you have to always to consider that the website is responsive enough then if you use this. But normally tables should be used for data tables like this one. And if you're interested in the tables, there's a quite good documentation on the W3C website, tables tutorials, where you see how how different tables with different complexity are handled right. Maybe the easiest thing is the table with one header cell, like this one. And in this header cell, you have to use the table header element to tell the screen reader that this is a table header cell. Yeah? So I can show you how to use these simple tables in Drupal, for example. So if I go to edit on my Drupal site, I have here a table. You can, of course, you can type in a different one. You have here the table element. Maybe we make such a table again. Huh? So and then I put some information inside the cells. So, and here numbers. So and now I want to tell this table that the first row is a heading row. So I go to this first row, then I use this small icon here, the row icon, and I can say now, you are a heading row. And if we take a look then to the code of these elements, I had to go down there with the arrow keys because I don't know. And if you take a look at this, you see the CK editor 5 is writing now table header cells instead of table data cells. More complex tables are not so easy to implement in the what you see is what you get editors. So if you have such kind of structures like this one, try to avoid it. Try to separate it in different tables, or you have to implement it really with HTML. So these are not so easy. Yeah. And then there are some other things to consider for content editors, like maybe an abbreviation or acronym. This is also AAA, that's why I skip it. This is an important thing that you mark changes in the language of the website. So if I have here my Drupal site again, and if you have here the main language in English, so and here you have a German sentence, you can mark it, and with this language choosing, plugin from CK Editor 5, you can assign a language to this element. And here I assigned the German language, and now I here. Now I read this page with the screen reader. Log out. So I used for testing and implementing and developing, I use the NVDAs very often. It's a free screen reader. It's upcoming in the community also. I have a German version, but the text is read then in English. So now I go through this website with the arrow keys and the tab keys. So now I'm here at this area. And then the navigation home. Heading 1 home. Now I'm going down. So I'm just reading the English things.
Greater face Dominion don't. He likes image where she likes good multiply under. Fifth, das ist ein deutscher Absatz.
And now he's reading this, das ist ein deutscher Absatz, really in German, not in English. So this is also a good thing to consider. So, and the last thing is the multimedia thing. So this is a big thing for editors. So if you're using videos or audios in the website, you always have to be sure that you use captions, subtitles for the videos, maybe a transcript, maybe an audio description for these videos. And if you include it into a website, so where is it? Here is it.
Im Schnitt 500 € pro Gespräch mit einer einzigen Fähigkeit. Und zwar die Fähigkeit.
So now I share it. And I embed it. And here you have the iframe where I can copy inside your website. You have to be sure that there's a title attribute inside this iframe, which is meaningful. This is one of the main important things if you're using a video also inside your website. Okay, so yeah, I hope there's of course many more things, but these are the main important things for content editors. So the images, the structuring, the headings, the tables, yeah, such things. So thank you. Some questions? Which online tools? So mainly I use to evaluate the website. I use, of course, the code inspection. So we take really a look with the inspector tool to the code. And no. Okay, now I understand. No.
Because this is for editors.
Okay, you're right. So you can use the Wave plugin, for example. It's an automatic test tool. So you see in this page we have 0 errors, yoo-hoo. Or you can use, for example, the X plugin. It's also an accessibility checker, where you see the problems, and I use also the web developer toolbar to get.
Sorry, the first one said it's okay. There is no errors. This one says there is one because
they have different.
Everybody says everything is different. Choosing the way, choosing the software you use. For example, your own page. If I put it in the Wave, the accessibility from your company has like 4 errors and stuff like this. So that's why I'm asking how can one have a good accessibility?
Yeah, so mainly if you're evaluating it really in the deep, then you have to do more things. You have to make a code inspection, you have to read it with the screen reader and so on. If you are thinking about content editors, choose one of the plugins. So they are similar. They have different algorithms, of course, and some are more strict than others, but you can choose the Wave or the X plugin, for example, to avoid the main errors. And some errors are not really errors, so they are automatic tools. If you have an image with an alternative text, the tool can say you have an alternative text, but the tool cannot say if the alternative text is meaningful. Yeah, so that's the problem with the automatic tools.
Just a quick question. Looking at the screen here, it says best practices are off, and we're getting a series 1. If you turn best practices on, is there going to be a difference when you rescan?
I don't know. I just have to. Normally, yes. In some cases, yes. But in this side, I don't know. So we can do a rescan. No, in this way, I think. Maybe. This one wasn't before there. I don't know exactly. But in some cases, yes. In some cases, there's a difference.
Okay, thanks.
Hypothetically, where do you see Drupal can meet the accessibility tools to actually help provide more accessible content? Because when we talk about Drupal sense, we talk about the layers before the content and then content itself, which content editors kind of can access. They can't access most of the other stuff. So if you would have one or two recommendations or where Drupal should head to improve the accessibility, which areas would you target?
I think that the Drupal community is doing really much in this area, developing cores and modules. I'm not the right person to answer this question, I think, for the Drupal core developers. But I've seen a plugin from the CK Editor 5, the accessibility scanner, which is quite good. It's not stable, I think, for Drupal 10 at the moment. But such add-on modules. I think Drupal itself on the back end is really quite good at the moment for accessibility. It always was. Maybe implement some plugins like such kind of accessibility scanners for back-end purposes like content editors, something like that, make more focus on this way.
It's more an additional information about your question. There is a module, it's the editorially module, which provides accessibility scanner for Drupal. And I will show it in my session tomorrow. You can see it there.
Cool, thank you.
Any more questions?
Hi, thanks for your talk. When I'm at an accessibility talk, I always ask the same question because, well, this it's all very interesting on the technical part, but in my personal experience, the biggest struggle with accessibility is always to sell and convince people. So my question, do you have any personal tips on how to get the client or someone interested or convinced that this is actually worth putting effort into? I know it's a stupid question, but it's always interesting.
No, it's a good question. It's a good question. Yeah, that depends on if is your client public.
They're not forced to. So
yeah. Okay. So that's one argument, of course. The law.
That's the only one that really works. Yeah.
And there's a new law, the accessibility law in Austria, also for bigger companies, coming 2025. So bigger companies, more than, I think, 2 million per year or 10 employees, I don't know at the moment exactly, they have to implement accessibility for the website. So it's upcoming also for private companies. Huh? And of course, there are some other revenues. So like search engine optimization goes hand in hand with accessibility. Usability also goes often hand in hand with accessibility. Yeah, you have a wider target group. So if you sell something, for example, so like a shop like Billa or something like that, and you implement really good accessibility things inside this shop, so more blind people will buy there than their stuff than on another website. So I have an example with the Gurkal website, or Gurkal app. So it was a good app for blind people, and then they changed everything and make it moderner and so on, and make it looks like modern and so on. And now they have many accessibility issues inside, and the blind people don't like to buy there anymore so much. I can't.
Do you have any like case studies or statistics, something you can point people to like actually prove that this costs?
No. No, sorry.
Do you know any AI tools so far which can help content editors to improve their, maybe especially alt texts or something? Because that's like the most part which is falling out in the whole content editor process.
Yeah, would be a good question, really interesting. I don't know any tools. Huh? Would be a good thing to implement a ChatGPT plugin for testing purpose, maybe. But I don't know any at the moment. Huh? Okay, then thank you again, and yeah, much fun. Ja, doch, doch. Ja, das ist sehr cool. Und doch einige Fragen. Ja.